Hello and welcome back to the Wizards Arena, my fellow Planeswalkers. And today we are going to be continuing on with our Zendikar Rising Standard Review. We scale on 1 to 10. We are on red now. So our first guy up is Kerrigan the Intimidator. He's a colorless in the red, 3/1 human warrior. Cowards can't block warriors. Okay. And you can kind of say like he's the red modal card in this set because he's got 3 things you can do for a colorless and you can't do any of them more than once. So you cast him on turn 2 and on turn 3 you spend 3 mana. You can make him a 4/2 that can't be blocked by that gets trample, and you make a creature they control a coward. Pretty good. Is he as good as the steam cannon that's rotating? Yeah, no, because steam cannon can make you lots of mana if you get the right things on. But mono red is always a thing. He's the mono red 2-drop. We're going to have in standard for a while. So, he's solid, 2 for 3/1, and if you don't have your 3-drop, you can do some more shenanigans. Really, really good. Like him. Not the best 2-drop I've ever seen, but for standard, he's what we got, and he's really good. So he gets a 7. We're going to be moving on to our next card now. And our next card is Leyline Tyrant. So on first read of this 2 colors, 2 red, 4/4 flyer, it's interesting. You don't lose red mana as your steps and phases end, okay? And when it dies, you may pay any amount of red mana. When you do, it deals that much damage to any target. I don't know what to say about this mythic. Like, 4/4 for a 4/4 flyer for 4 is fine. Yeah, I mean, like, that's really good. But the problem he's got is I've never seen a thing like this before in red. Green had one with that's the first time we were in Zendikar. So, like, green bleeding into red is fine. Like, it's not, like, a blue effect that we're getting here. The problem is with red, you're usually tapping out. And with the extra red mana floating in your pool, like, he'd have to come out on turn 4 and the game would have to stall out. So maybe, like, a red-green mid-range should be good. It's, I got 2 mana left over from turn 4. In turn 5, I have a couple extra mana, so I can, like, cast this big red-green dopey thing. I just don't see him being much more than a 4/4 for 4. So, like, in limited, he's going to be crazy. But if you get any mythic in limited or rare, you're golden. Like, so I just think, because I just can't think of a way in standard to abuse him, I'm going to give him a 3. Because he's a 4/4 flyer, which is good, but all this other words he's got on him, I just don't know what to say about him. Like, he's got lots of words on him. But where, like, you couldn't have said, like, oh, for every 1 red mana extra in your pool, you got +1/+1. That just would be redonkulous. So I just don't know what to do with him. Someone smarter will figure out a way to bust him. I mean, he's pretty sweet because you put Emerald Cleaver on him and fly on over. The next turn, it's smash him for lots. Unblockable. Because you got evasion. Okay, our next sweet card is the Magnetic Channeler. Colors in a red for a 1/3. If there are 4 more instances or sorceries in your graveyard, it gets +3/+1. So it's a 4/4 human wizard then for 2. You can tap, ditch a card, exile the 2 cards on top of your deck and choose one of them, you may play this card. So the advantage is that if you hit double land, you can play a land. Like, that's good. Um, it's not like it's one of those cases in Red where before you would have to cast a spell. You get to play the spell, which is a lot different. So, this one gets slightly higher marks than the other one. The red one we currently have in standard only requires 2 cards in your yard to get the buff, where this requires 4, but it's a bigger buff. That sees play. So I'm going to give this guy a 5. He'll probably see play in fringes, probably not in party, probably only in spell slinging decks. Kind of interesting little card we got going here. Okay, our next card. Oh boy. Mawagris Fury of Akum. 4 and 2 red, 6/6 Minotaur. Each creature you control gets +1/+0 for each time you attack this turn. Landfall. When a land enters the battlefield under your control during your main phase, there's an additional combat phase after this phase. At the beginning of that combat, untap all creatures you control. So, basically, with all the landfall shenanigans and stuff like that, it may be in a red-green deck, because we don't have the red-black dual lands, so I don't see it being red-black. You could probably get, like, multiple combat tricks going, and, like, with Cultivate, you could do some silliness, like, Cultivate, play a land. He's just really, really good. He's not going to be in a party deck, except maybe a 1 of or 2 of, because he costs 6 mana. 6 of it. It's like really expensive. But I mean, he's totally justified. He's got a good body. When he attacks, he's a 7/6. Is he as good as the red god we're losing? No. That red god was bonkers. Obviously, I feel like he could have done a little more with him. I like him a lot, but not a lot of that like I have for the card is spilling over from Commander. In standard, though, he's getting to 5. He's like, he might see fringe play, and if red-green landfall is a thing, he's going to get played. Like 2 of. Just going to finish people off, go smash, 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 and you're going to win. But, yeah, that's about it for him. Like, I don't see him being played with party mechanic, stuff like that. It's just, you're playing him for his landfall trigger for 6 mana. Now, here he's Lithoform. Like, this spell, I could see, like, being turn 7, comboing with him, maybe, for the kill. Because you spend, like, 5 and 2 red, sacrifice 5 of your lands. For each land you sack this way, draw a card, and then you may play X additional lands this turn. Okay, I drew 5 cards. I had 1 land in hand. I drew 2 more. So I'll play all 3 lands. I get 3 additional combat steps this turn. So I'm just going to start smashing people for a whole bunch. Aside from that, this card's pretty terrible. Like, I just don't... It's just way overcosted, way... It's red to the core. It's chaotic. Will it be good? Probably not. But this is a mass card draw in red. So we're going to have to only give it a 3. Like, there are certain fringe situations where it could be good, but I got a feeling that we're not going to get there. It's neat, but that's about all you can say about it. Relic Robber. This guy's interesting. He's weird. Like you want to try out new things for goblins and red in general and magic in general. 2 and a red for a hasted 2/2. Whenever he deals combat damage to a player, that player gets 0/1 colors goblin construct that can't block. At the beginning of your upkeep, at the beginning of the controller of the goblin's construct upkeep, they take 1 damage. So it's pretty funny. The goblin runs over, hits you for 2, gives you a construct, and leaves. And because, well, the goblin made a golem, he's not good at his job, so you take a damage for every turn you have this cursed golem thing under your control. So it's really funny, and then it's a rogue. So maybe if there's some weird, janky Naya, or Jessica party mechanic going on, then it's okay. But that's the thing, he's just okay, like. So this guy, he gets 3 because he's funny. Like, he's not going to be in mono red aggro because we got the demigod still, who's infinitely better on all fronts. So, this is more along the lines of, if you're going to play, it's going to be, haha, I give you some goblin constructs. Handle it. Moving on to our next card. Roland Vortex. Okay, fans. I like this card a lot. I am really high on this card. I read this card the first time. I'm like, okay, let's see here. Roland Vortex, red enchantment. Okay, so what do we get for 5 mana? It seems like that's what they start with. 5 mana. Okay, if it's a red enchantment, it's going to be like 3 and 2 red. And it's at the beginning of each player's upkeep. This deals 1 damage to them. Whenever a player casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast a spell, they take 5. Like the Narset from Khans of Takir, and you spend a red and your opponents can't gain life this turn. So unlike Sulfur Vortex, you can gain life. So in a red-white hybrid build, this could be kind of neat. Unfortunately, to my knowledge, off the top of my head, I would have to double check, there's no red-white land. So again, we're back to the beginning. But for 2 mana, this enchantment is solid. Now, in standard, maybe in a super aggressive deck, and it's going to be placed in the red and the colorless enchantment. We have this Leave-In from Ravnica. It says whenever a power 1 or less attacks, you do a damage to them. But the good thing about this card, I feel, is eternal formats. That's where it's going to shine. But in standard, not so much. So eternal formats, I feel like this is an 8. It's going to see a lot of play there. But in standard, unfortunately, is only going to be a 4. Like, if a super aggressive deck starts to appear for red, this can go in there and just help you, like, crush them down. And then, if there's free spells, it punishes them. But I just don't see it in standard as much as I would expect to see it in modern or legacy or commander. So moving on, we have our next sweet card. Oh boy, this guy. Shadow Skull Charger. For 2 red and a color, you get a 4/3 trampoline hasted. He has a kicker of 2. If you kick him, he enters the battlefield with only 1/+1/+1 counter. Well, that doesn't seem too hot. At the beginning of your end step, if he has no counters on him, put him back in your hand. Okay, so basically, this is the new Ball Lightning. For 3 mana, you get a 4/3, so it survives a little more Garbo. You can play him with the other warrior that we're seeing here. But he has to compete with a demigod spot. Maybe he could be a backup 4-drop or 5-drop in mono red. But aside from that, like if you are playing with the 2-drop warrior we saw in the beginning, then he can get through more often. But he's only going to get a 5. There's other things fighting over the slot with him, but he's good enough to warrant maybe 2 copies of a backup 3-drop, and then you might just put 2 there, and you might put 2 in the 5 slot, because the ball lightning saw play, but this, I think we'll see not 4 of play. We'll see a couple. That's about it. It's a cool card. Like it a lot. But not going to see full value. Just partial. Our next fun card is the Shadow Skull Smashing Mythic Land. This is the worst spell that we have seen. This spell from this Mythic Land is terrible. Because in order to make it good, you gotta spend 8 mana. And then you're doing 12 damage to creature or planeswalker. You can't hit a player. You can only hit 2 things. There's a lot of limitations on this. Like, I feel like at most in Standard, you might run 2 of these, but you'd probably figure them in land slots and not spells at all. Because in red, like maybe in landfall, this might see a little play, but in red aggro, no. This isn't going to get played a lick. If you get to turn 8 in red aggro, something's horribly wrong. So I'm going to just the only thing that's saving is you can play it as a land, so it's not totally useless. It replaces a basic mountain. Because if it was just a basic mountain, it would be if it wasn't a basic mountain, if it was just this thing here, it would be like, dear Lord, why? So, because it's got the upside of that going for it, it gets boosted to a 4. If it didn't have the land on it, it'd be a 2 to a 1. This is just bad. This is, I hate it. Hate it. But the land makes it better. So let's move on. See what we have left to talk about. Valakut, the Awakening. Now this is the rare. Whoops, where'd the land go? There's the rare land. Sorry, folks. The thing I like about this one is it's an instant, unlike the red-white one we're losing in War of the Spark. And it only affects you for wheel effect. So you put all your cards on a bottom and draw that number +1. Or you can play it as a land. So your hand has to be total hot garbage to play this. But that's usually the thing with these things. And the advantage this has is if your land is moderate to decent, you can play it as a land and get mana out of it next turn. So this one, I feel, compared to some of the other wheelie effects like this one, and the fact it has a land staple on it, it gets a 6. This is one of the better red cards we've seen so far in Standard. It's the whole wheel effect with the lands I like. Moving on to our next guy that we've already kind of seen is Valakut Exploration. 2 in a red, landfall. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, exile the top card of your library. And again, you may play this card as long as it's remains exiled. So if it's a land, or, you know, you get to play land if you find a land. Beginning of your end step, if there are cards exiled with the exploration, put them into your yard and then take that much damage, deal that much damage to each opponent. So I didn't cast this one because I didn't have enough mana. I shoot this guy for 1. Pretty good. Sort of like Outpost Siege. If for whatever reason somebody's stupid and it's my turn and they destroy all enchantments, I still get to play the card over here that's been exiled until my whenever, because I don't need the enchantment, or if I blow up all the enchantments. So that's what makes it good. This thing, he gets to clock in at a 5. He's a decent little draw engine for red. Kind of what we've been expecting. Moving on. This is a red for 2/2 Wayward Guide Beast, Trample, Haste. And when it deals combat damage to a player, return a land you control to its owner's hand. You know, this is okay. It's nothing spectacular. I don't see it getting used much at all. So this is a 3. It's whatever. It's just very unexciting. Initially you read in your, oh, it's 1 for a 2/2 Trample and Hasted. Wow, that's great. But wait a second, red's not that good. Yeah, you're right, red's not that good. It doesn't get that stuff. So this card kind of went womp, womp, womp. Zendikar is this standard's new Pyroclasm. These kinds of effects are 5s. They're nice to have in the format. If certain small aggro decks get off hand, 2 mana, do 1 to everything. Kicker, do 2 to everything. Instant speed, Anger of the Gods. Sweet. Sold. And the final card we have to talk about is the replacement for Lava Coil. That did 4 damage and exiled a creature. Well, we lose the exiling effect, but this now does damage to creatures and planeswalkers. So that's kind of cool. So for colorless and a red, we now get 4 damage from walkers. Unfortunately, a lot of the walkers in this set have a bunch of solid loyalty, so that really doesn't help here. So this has been the review of Red. Please like, share, subscribe, comment below. This has been Draymore with Wizards Arena. I'll see you in video 5 for Green. You all have yourself a great day, and I'll talk to you later.